Sorry for missing class. I know it sucks that I require attendance and I don't show up myself, but I'm going to try to share a little bit of this trip with you because it's actually completely related to fish. So I'm here at the Reelfoot National Wildlife Refuge. It's in the northwest corner of Tennessee. In fact, I think I'm going to actually cross into Kentucky and then back into Missouri before I get down to Little Rock, Arkansas for the American Fisheries Society meeting. But I just thought I would share this little cypress swamp here in the refuge, and there's all kinds of fish jumping all over the place. And of course, I have no idea what they are. But hopefully, we find out some more about the local fish in the next couple days. So there are at least bass and crappie here. Daily limit of 30 for the crappies. I like how this says, please practice good catch and release techniques. And that's something that's really important for many studies, to be able to do effective capture and manipulation and then release with minimal to no harm to the animal. Obviously, when you're doing surgeries, that can be a little bit more complicated, but still, by following best practices, which we will cover at least a little in this class, you can help minimize the stress and then release the animal into the wild in a good condition. Now on the banks of the mighty Mississippi River, pretty low actually. Alright, so now I'm actually at the American Fisheries Society meeting, and this is the poster and trade center where there's lots of people who are selling lots of things. But the first thing we're going to do is talk to the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, who have this wonderful display of their local fish, so we get to see what those fish were probably in the ponds up in the wildlife refuge. There you go.
My name is James Davidson, and I work for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. The program I'm with the Game and Fish is the Aquatic Resources Education Program. And what we do is we travel the state with aquariums like this and talk to people about fish and fishing, helping them to learn how to identify the different species is an important thing that we do. That way they can look through the regulation books and be able to know whether they're staying within their guidelines. Identifying a fish is going to depend upon looking at the entire fish to identify them. Species like our largemouth bass versus our spotted bass on the other side of the aquarium over there, they look so similar, but they can be told apart because looking at the fish itself, where the jawline stops, largemouth bass stops back behind the jaw. The spotted bass is going to stop more even with the jaw. Looking at the scales on the fish is going to give you a more certain identification marker. Largemouth bass, the cheek scales are going to be about the same size as those on the body. Whereas on the spotted bass, the cheek scales are half the size of those on the body. Fish like our gar species, Arkansas has 4 different species of gar residing within the state. We got long-nosed gar, spotted gar, and short-nosed gar. Looking at the entire fish again is going to help you to identify them. The nose on the long-nosed gar is self-explanatory. He's got the real long, narrow snout. The short-nosed gar has got the shorter, broader snout, but the same coloration and markings as the long-nosed gar. Whereas the spotted gar is going to have the short, broad nose and have spots all over his body, including the top of his head and around his belly section. Our alligator gar, he's going to have a shorter, even shorter and broader bill in comparison to the head size. His markings usually stop about 2/3 of the way down the body with a white stomach. Other species, big-mouth buffalo. His mouth is to the front. He's got the rounded head with the mouth at the front, frown-shaped mouth. He's a filter feeder. That helps him during his feeding times. He can open his mouth, pour water through, let the gill rakers gather the food for him. The smallmouth buffalo behind him, his mouth is downturned, considerably smaller, and he'll feed more sucking along the bottom or along rocks, limbs, and so forth, gathering up phytoplankton, zooplankton, and such. The black buffalo, the other side of the smallmouth buffalo across, his mouth is still downturned, but a little bit more to the front, and he still feeds by sucking along the bottom and such. Our sunfish species, different species of sunfish, the bluegill, identified by the real blue flashy portion down here at the lower portion of the gill flap, and the blackened lobe. Let's see, freshwater drum. Arkansas's only croaking fish. We identify him by his shape as well. He's got the horizontal line there on the flat, level horizontal line on the bottom, whereas his back is arched over a good bit. His dorsal fin is predominant and standing up, a lot of raise to it. He is, like I said, Arkansas's only croaking fish, so he's verbal, he's vocal. He makes his noise by taking oxygen into his swim bladder, belching it back out, making a croaking sound. Or different species of catfish. Arkansas has approximately 18 different species of catfish. So the blue catfish and the flathead catfish being our two largest species. The blue catfish normally are milky to steely blue, or that we carry in these tanks generally turn black because of their pigmentation, their melanin allowing them to darken or tan with exposure to sunlight. But you can look at even the smaller ones, identify them using their eyes even. How deep notch the tail is on them, the caudal fin, the line on the anal fin. The blues that have the more straighter line on the anal fin, whereas the channel cats have more of a rounded anal fin, such as this one over here, sitting below the smaller blue. White bass versus striped bass versus hybrid striper. White bass is going to be deeper bodied. He's got the real small thin lines that pretty much disappear halfway down the body, just below the lateral line. Whereas a striped bass is going to have a little bit darker, thicker lines, and they're going to continue on head to tail, almost continuous, and they'll continue on further down below the lateral line. A hybrid striper will look like the striped bass, except he's deeper bodied and his lines break and almost read like a graph at times, the way they jump up and down. Back to our catfish, our flathead catfish. Coloration for him, shape of his head. He's mottled brown with a wedged shaped head. Thus the name flathead catfish. And that pretty much rounds out what species I have in warm water fishes in this tank.
Great. I'm wondering if you might be able to tell us about the crappie.
We don't have any crappie. There's nothing crappie about them. They're crappie.
Crappie.
Crappie here are panfish, and they have, it depends upon where you're at, is what their common name is. Northern states tend to call them crappie. We call them crappies. South Arkansas, you'll hear them more referred to as white perch or speckled perch. That's North or South Arkansas, North Louisiana. Further down in Louisiana, they call them sac-a-lait. Regional differences for common names. Our freshwater drum I was talking about earlier, in South Louisiana, they're called gaspergoo. Gaspergoo. I've heard them call our gar jackfish. I know jackfish is a saltwater fish and totally different species, but that's just a regional difference in what they call them in those areas.
Great. Just so we see what a crappie looks like. That's a really large gar, about 3 feet long. It's a really big tank, actually. Give you a sense of scale. There's some people standing right over there. So it's a really big tank. It's a really big fish. Those are both really big fish. All of those, the catfish and the gar. But as you can see, they're all these fish. The guy talked about how there's different functional morphology, and that's related to their shape and to their identification. I just wanted to follow up with this really good brochure that the state has here that was available at the same holding tanks that you saw the fish in. That it explains really exactly how you identify these different fish based on their morphologies and certain characteristics, such as for the smallmouth, the upper jaw extends to the eye and there's no dark horizontal stripe on the side, shallow notch between the dorsal fins. And each of these characteristics you can see allow the distinction between these different types of bass, and then of course, you know, the sturgeons are entirely different type of fish. And we move on, we have these gars that he was explained to you that there are these specific snout related, as well as here we have some dark spots. And these are not the most ideal type of characteristics to go by if you had a lot of very similar species, but certainly enough to go by to distinguish between the different types of, in this case, trout. So I just thought I would share that with you. Okay.
Well, hello, good day. My name is Paul Horner. My company is Midwest Lake Electrofishing Systems, and I'm here speaking with you today about an electrofishing boat. And what an electrofishing boat does is it's a type of sampling that fisheries managers use to sample fish populations in streams, reservoirs, lakes, or wherever they would like to go in a big enough body of water that they can put a boat on. So the way that this works is you have a boom system out in the front, and you have a boat, you have a generator, which is the power source, and then you have a control box, which alters the power coming in from the generator so you can produce the correct waveform to capture fish. And the system works as the booms and the anodes, which is the positive part of the connection. The boat is the negative part of the connection. So the field in which you encounter the fish as you're driving along is right in front of the boat. So you have a dipper that will be up on the bow with dip nets. The fish will come up in between here from the anodes to the cathode. And so the dipper dips up the fish, brings the fish in, puts them in the live well, and from a stratified random sample from a reservoir or a lake or impoundment, you measure, weigh, enumerate your fish, and you can figure out what is going on with that particular fish population, or the community sampling, or if you're interested in largemouth bass management, or sunfish management, or you can even shot catfish with the electrofishing boat. So it has a lot of application for a lot of different things. Even researchers, they may have a specific species in particular or a specific question from a state agency to go out, target these fish, learn more about them so they can help better manage those fish populations.
So this is a really, really big version of this boat?
This particular boat is a very large electrofishing boat. It's used on really big waters, large rivers. This boat is 20 feet long. It's 102 inches across the beam, and it's 84 inches across the bottom. So they come all shapes and sizes and configurations, and our company, we build them to suit the customer's needs and work within their budget and try to get them the tools that they need to effectively manage their fish populations.
And where was this boat used?
This boat is going to the state of Alabama, and it'll be the home base for the boat will be Auburn University.
And it's
used by the state DNR, Alabama Fish and Game.
And used in what body of water?
It'll be the Tennessee River systems below hydropower dams, and they'll also use it not only for electrofishing, but they'll also use it for netting purposes. You can completely strip all the electrofishing gear out of the boat and use it for a net boat. So you can deploy gill nets, trammel nets, trot lines if you're targeting sturgeon, for example, hoop nets, whatever kind of fisheries gear that you need to deploy, you can still use this boat to deploy those other gears.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
This is a modified trap.
Okay, first, introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Harold Miller, Miller Net Company. This is a modified trap net. Normally used to sampling fish, various types of fish. It's set from the bank out. When fish hit the lead, they go in through a split throat right here, on back into the cod end through a throat.
So, what kind of environments would people use this in? Just rivers?
Mostly lakes.
Mostly lakes?
In lakes, not streams.
I've seen something like this used in estuaries before to catch fish coming into estuaries.
Crappie is a large sample that they use. This is a trammel net.
All right, maybe we can go over there. Everybody always gets sick when I start moving around, but
This net is used to make sit straight out. Usually the depth is 6 foot from here to here, or 10 foot up. It forms a pocket. As fish hit this pocket, It's got enough webbing in the bottom of it here that they can turn and come back through. And it just forms a pocket for them. The netting usually inside of a net here on Tramolet is usually 4 foot deeper than the net itself.
So what kind of environments would you use that in?
It's used in all types of lakes, rivers, lowland area.
So that'd be like a more standard gill net?
This is a experimental gill net where it starts with a smaller mash size and comes up with different mash sizes. AFS standard net has got 80 foot long, 6 foot deep, and it's got 8 different panels.
8 different panels of different size mesh?
A different size mash, a different size twine size.
So could you maybe explain to people why you would use different size nets, meshes on a gill net?
Depending on you're targeting one type of fish, one size of fish. You know, the smaller the mash, the smaller fish you're going to.
Right.
It does just what it says. They're going to gill in it, where they get their head through as far as they can go.
Right, so the size of the head and gills of the fish and the size of the mesh are the two important things.
The size of fish you're going to get.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Harold.
You're welcome.
All right, I thought I would stop here really briefly just to show you some things. These are this is a board for measuring fish. You put his nose up in there, and then you use the both either centimeter of inches to measure the length. This is a caliper. You can also use that to measure fish. We have all kinds of probes for determining oxygen and so forth in the water. We have scales that you can use to weigh the fish in the field. We have all kinds of different types of gear, sampling gear, gloves, of course my favorite, the dip net, and then everything else you might need, including sunglasses, axes, and of course GPS to record where you are, which is a nice new thing that's happened in the last 20 years. And then of course the Ride and Rain paper. So this is like these guys have basically everything you would need to go fishing except for the big nets that were just explained. Okay.
Hi, my name is Murray Hall from Halltech Aquatic Research in Guelph, Ontario. We've been supplying equipment for the fisheries research community for about 20 years now. And Adrian has just asked me to describe very briefly some of the features and functionality of our HT2000 battery backpack electrofisher. Very simple to use. We're controlling our frequency and our voltage, and our duty cycle automatically adjusts using the frequency setting. We've gone pretty much, our standard battery is now a lithium-ion battery, 29 volts, 10 amp hour battery. In most cases, we're getting 6,000 to 7,000 shocking seconds out of one battery, which is almost a full day's work, which is very nice. It's a very compact, rugged unit. Once your settings are done, everything's locked in a Pelican case, and it's a very compact, virtually indestructible device here for fisheries research. Everything fits in the electrofishing box. We've got a 3-piece breakdown anode pull, got different size anode rings, the charger, and a spot for the extra battery. On our unit, you can actually charge the battery in the unit and the spare battery simultaneously through the same charger in a Y cable. So very briefly, the way electrofishing works is we're electrifying the water and adjusting, making finite adjustments to get taxis in the fish. Taxis is when you can actually get them to roll and be immobilized to a point where you can net them. So, and that is done by starting with, to reduce fish injury, we're keeping our voltage low, and then we'll go up through the frequency settings until we get that perfect response. If you don't get it there, you can bump up the voltage up to 150 degrees and then go through the frequency settings until you get the desired response. So the whole idea is that the tissue in the fish, you'll find that perfect sweet spot where they will take the electrical current rather than the water taking it around. So that's one of our products we make and design This is basically a telescoping fish net that breaks all down and fits in the case. We're making very powerful electrofishing boats. Manufacture a complete array of limnological and biological sampling apparatus, subsampler trays, sieve baskets, Schindler Pitalis plankton traps, sieve buckets, grab samplers, Ekman dredges. Virtually anything used in fisheries and aquatic research we either make or distribute, including GPS and data collection tools like these, so you can get away from your manual data entry and get it collecting data in a digital format, so you can put it right back into your databases error-free. So if you have any other questions, please call us at haltechaquatic.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, I'm back in my hotel room now. I just wanted to allow at least some transition from these very kind people who have given a few minutes of their afternoon to explain the different sampling gears that they had available. If you notice, there was one mistake with the degrees. I think that should have been volts. But other than that, I think that they gave a pretty good understanding of how electrofishing gear works, and then of course the different types of nets. But they were not all covered, and in fact they build many other different types of nets, the Miller nets as well as the other net manufacturers, that to suit the needs of their clients. So I don't want you to feel like I've covered every type of sampling gear exhaustively. But now I would like to transition from this sort of look at these different manufacturers and suppliers who are providing these goods, and instead I want now to allow you to listen to a number of graduate students and former graduate students who have actually done fisheries research, and hopefully their explanations as to how they've done their work and what they did will help you understand again the importance of both the identification, capture, and sampling of fish. So with that, here you go.